And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I am your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and as always, it's great to have you guys here on this, I forgot what day it is, Wednesday. and we're going to go through a lot of stuff today on the show today. But before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, the link is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. Yeah, I don't know why I just had that brain fart there. But anyways... So we have a lot to talk about on the show today. We'll start off by going through the latest news and headlines because there was some injury news and other stuff that I wanted to talk about on the show today to start it off. And then in the second part of the show, we'll talk about the power rankings, both in the NFL and in college. So we'll do that. In the third part of the show, we'll talk about the head coaches that are on the hot seat. Because obviously Frank Reich, the head coach of the Panthers, he was fired yesterday. So we'll cover some other coaches that could be on their way to getting let go as well. And then something that I haven't done in a while, we'll look at the current stat leaders. We'll actually do that in college, for college as well. So that's the rundown for the show today. So let's get right into the first part of the show, which is talking about the latest news and headlines. So obviously yesterday I did briefly mention it, and we'll talk about it in the third part of the show as well. The fact that the Panthers let go of head coach Frank Reich, and he actually is the first head coach ever to be fired in back-to-back seasons. That has never happened before. And on top of that, he didn't make it through the full season. With the Colts last year, they replaced him with Jeff Saturday. And then this year, the Panthers bring him in, and he doesn't make it through the whole season either. And one of the things that, is really, really concerning, well, not concerning, but like, one of the things that, makes you, pause is the fact that, he wanted C.J. Stroud, supposedly. And the Panthers elected to take Bryce Young instead. And the way these two guys have been performing, it's not comparable. Now, the funny thing is, the Panthers' only win this season came against the Texans. But it's not good, and a lot of people are not putting the blame on Frank Reich. This goes to, falls to the feet of Dave Tepper, and how this roster has been built. Because this was a team that, listen, the NFC South is a very bad division this year. But the Panthers were competitive in it last year. They could have won it. They lost that game against the Bucs where they were winning, and they could have maybe snuck into the playoffs as the NFC South winner, and that wasn't the case. But what they've done the last couple of seasons. They let go. They not let go, but they traded Christian McCaffrey. They traded DJ Moore, and they replaced these guys with Miles Sanders and Adam Thielen, who has had a nice year, but Miles Sanders has been a huge disappointment for the Panthers this year. And Bryce Young just has not looked good. So I think if you keep DJ Moore and you keep Christian McCaffrey, I mean that definitely would help Bryce Young, but. To replace them with Miles Sanders and Adam Thielen, like, that's just not going to do it. But, I mean, for me, in the beginning of the year, I thought, like, okay, like, you at least, like, brought some guys in, some veterans in that can help, the rookie quarterback, but that just really has not, that hasn't led to really anything other than just one win. And obviously, the Panthers moved up to get the number 1 overall pick, and they had to trade DJ Moore to do so. But yeah, they have not gotten out what they hoped for in year one with Bryce Young. So, we'll see what happens moving forward. But that was just one thing that came out of yesterday is them getting rid of Frank Reich. So some other news as well. Jonathan Taylor actually is going to be getting surgery. So, talking about the Colts, they right now occupy that last wild card spot in the AFC, and the news came out yesterday that Jonathan Taylor is going to be getting surgery, which kind of came out of nowhere. The Colts obviously coming off of that win against the Bucs to improve their record, so he's going to be getting surgery on his thumb, and he's hoping to return in the next 2 to 3 weeks. It says I'm looking at a sleeper. It's just it's crazy how that ended up happening because he was playing really well. And now that's a huge hit for the Colts offense. Now Zach Moss steps right back into the lead running back role, which he was running the ball effectively. When Jonathan Taylor missed the first I think 4 games of the season. So at least you could go back to him, and your running game is still going to be good. Now obviously it's going to take a step back because Jonathan Taylor is one of the best running backs in the NFL. No disrespect to Zach Moss, but that's just a fact. And Zach Moss was actually one of the top rushers in the NFL before Jonathan Taylor came back. So, it's just unfortunate that had to happen. But like it says, it's supposed to be 2 to 3 weeks. Hopefully he's back and the Colts, can still, go at it for the playoffs because they still got a shot. They right now they occupy that last wild card spot. I don't know if they're going to keep it, even with Jonathan Taylor. I don't know if they were going to keep the spot, but credit to them. I think they definitely going to be a good team next year, and I keep saying that. And then some other news regarding the Vikings. So they are activating Justin Jefferson. Now they're going to be in their bye this week, but I think that's really important to get him back, especially with how the game went on Monday. You're going to want to get your best player back, and he's definitely going to help out that offense because they really need it right now because they've lost their last 2 games. You would think maybe if he did play on Monday, they could have won that game. I just couldn't believe how bad Josh Dobbs played. But, credit to the Bears defense, But, yeah, that game was rough. But he's going to be back after the bye week, and we'll see, how him and Josh Dobbs build a connection. But I just thought it was interesting how the Vikings are going to evaluate Josh Dobbs over the bye week. I just find that very strange because I don't know. I just feel like he's who you should ride with moving forward. Although, he's turned the ball over a lot the last 2 games. He had a couple of turnovers in the Broncos game too. But, I feel like with the bye week and you're getting Jefferson back, I feel like they're going to get it right. And I still look at them as the team that, of the the teams in the NFC, fighting for those wild card spots. I think they still get in. The running game is still an issue. They're still not running the football great, and I don't think that's really going to turn around. But you get Jefferson back to go along with Addison, with Hawkinson, KJ Osborne. I think they should be okay, but that remains to be seen. So, but it's going to be nice to get Justin Jefferson back because obviously, when he's healthy, he's one of the best receivers in football, if not the best receiver in football. And, it's going to be nice to see him back on the field. So, the last thing I wanted to talk about was actually a player that retired, a player that, I wasn't a fan of when I was younger because as a Giant fan growing up. And that is obviously Deshaun Jackson announcing his retirement from the game today. And I just wanted to pull up his stats, if I can get them up. So he announced his retirement after 15 seasons in the NFL, and these are his career stats. Pulled them up from ProFootballReference.com. So in 183 games, he had 641 receptions, 11,000 yards receiving, over 11,000 yards receiving, and he had 58 touchdowns. 3-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champ, and yeah, he was a guy that tormented me as a young Giant fan. He used to be one. He was one of the best deep ball threats in the NFL at one point. Injuries kind of hurt him towards the end of his career, but you go back to when he ran back the punt return in 2010. Matt Dodge, not kicking the ball out of bounds. The Eagles ended up winning the division that year. And, if the Giants win that game, then they, the Giants had like a big lead in that game and they blew it. So that was not always fun. But, anytime he was on the field, I just did not like him. He was just very, like, there was that, in 2011, he, like, threw the ball at, like, one of the coaches on the Giants. I think it was something like that. It was just he did a weird celebration on the sideline. I really just did not like his attitude when he was with the Eagles. But he was a very good player, so, if he was a bad player, then it's like, what are you doing? But, he backed it up. And I do remember, because I was helping my dad, put up, Christmas decorations outside. And I remember, like, that night, my mom was just, like, so mad over the Giants losing that game. I'm pretty sure we heard her, like, screaming when, Deshaun Jackson, like, ran back the punt return. And, and then he went to a bunch of teams after that. He was on Washington. He was on Tampa Bay. He was on the Ravens, the Raiders. He was on a bunch of teams, towards the end of his career. But that's just another player from, my childhood that's, walking away from the game. And, he was a good player. And, just, again, another player walking away from the game. But, yeah, that was just a thing that came out. I saw right before I came on, so I wanted to touch upon that. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all the headlines I kind of wanted to talk about. Obviously, we got the bowl games coming up. Friday into the weekend. In college football. You got Oregon and Washington going at it on Friday. Of course, you got Georgia and Alabama. So some big games this weekend. As the college football season is going to wind down because now it's just bowl games. So but yeah, so that's basically it with the first topic of the show. So when we come back from our first break of the show, we'll look into the power rankings that were released this week. We'll look at the NFL side of things and also the college football side of things as well. So that's what we'll do. And then, obviously, like I said, the third part of the show, we'll talk about head coaches that are on the hot seat, and then we'll get into stat leaders. So that is what we'll do when we come back from our first break. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.